All right, well, happy day. Welcome to Space, and glad that we're here together. Quick question before I jump into this. Any ornithologists in the house today? Bird watchers? Oh, so some of you you just didn't know what you were called. All right, so welcome. We're actually going to go to a moment in the life of Jesus, and in this moment we're going to unpack this teaching where he refers to the Heavenly Father as a bit of an ornithologist. And so before I read what Jesus has to say about it, I thought I'd give you a couple of fun facts, all right? And so let's start with this one. The most common bird on the planet is what? Sparrow. No, it's the domesticated chicken. Yeah, so much to the relief of you Chick-fil-A fans, you're always going to have something to eat. All right, next fun fact here. And the most common bird in the wild is, you already said it, right? No, not a turkey. A sparrow, the house sparrow. There's said to be 1.6 billion of them. So I guess somebody counted. I don't know. But I just know that's a lot of sparrows, right? So that said, we're going to look at this moment in the life of Jesus where he makes a comparison between sparrows and us. And it's a fascinating read to me. It's found in scriptures, and it's found in the book of Matthew. He wrote an account of the teaching and the life of Jesus. And I want to set up what he says. I'm just going to read a paragraph of it, but set it up before I read it. So the backstory is this. Jesus has been mentoring 12 men that he's about to send out. And we refer to these men in the church world as the disciples. So he's been mentoring them, and he's about to send them out to live out and to speak about the unbelievable beauty of God's grace and God's love to impact the surrounding community. And which is a beautiful thing to be done, right? But what I find interesting as Jesus is giving instructions to the 12 guys, in the narrative, Jesus goes to great lengths to sort of warn the guys that this beautiful message and this beautiful work you're going to do, it is not going to be all that well received by many people. And so some people are going to push back and going to get angry, not just with the message, but with the messenger. Some people are going to attack not just the message, they're going to actually attack the messenger. And when I read this warning of Jesus, I think this just sounds so counterintuitive, right? I mean, how could anybody get upset and amped up and angry over a message about the love and the grace of God for we human beings? But Jesus knows from his own experience that the love and the grace that God has in his heart for we human beings is so much broader and so much deeper than we realize, because this love and this grace for God actually goes to human beings that some of we human beings don't think other human beings deserve. You ever notice that? Yeah, I want all of God's grace and all of God's love for people like me, and people who believe like me, and people who are like me. But some of those people who are out there on this planet, my goodness, do you know what they believe? My goodness, do you know what they do and how they live their lives? And Jesus has been saying God's love and God's grace is for everyone. So when the guys go out and start proclaiming this to people, Jesus knows they're going to be messing with people's religious belief systems. You want to get in deep weeds in a hurry? You want to get people angry in a hurry? Mess with their religious belief systems. And that'll get their attention in a hurry, because then you're messing with their understanding of who God is. And when you do this, look out, because it unsettles something inside of them. Because we're absolutely convinced that we are right, doggone it. And I'm certain that I'm right. And then when you mess with people's belief systems, they get angry. And they attack not just the message, they attack the messenger. And so Jesus knows when these guys find themselves being attacked for talking about the love and the grace of God and for giving that grace to others, it's going to unsettle something inside of them. Because when life gets hard and difficult and complicated and we can't understand it and the pain feels like more than we can bear, there's something gets unsettled inside of us and we start asking, does God know? And does God care? Like why me? Because here these guys are, setting out to do something that is beautiful and good in this world, and they're going to get bad in return. Here I am trying to do what I think is God's work in this world, and all I'm getting is a mess returned to me. So what's happening here? And in these moments, Jesus knows they're going to wonder, does God know? And does God care? Ever been there? If you haven't, you will be. When life gets remarkably upside down and hard and difficult, something unjust happening, something that is just mind-boggling, confusing to happen, that you cannot somehow connect with the God who is loving and powerful with what has just happened in your life. And you reach these moments where you find yourself wondering, does God know what's going on here? Does God care about what's going on in our life? It's hard, isn't it? It's hard. So Jesus, in anticipation of these kind of moments the disciples are going to have, this is interesting, he uses a sparrow to remind the guys, God knows and God cares. All right, let's pick it up. Here's the paragraph about sparrows. Matthew chapter 10, verse 29. He says this to the 12. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside of their Father's care. Let's pause. In this moment, Jesus is applying the law of supply and demand here to sparrows. You remember the law of supply and demand from your Economics 101 class? Yeah, it's the equation, the availability of supply plus the size of demand determines value, right? So if you have a really low supply and there's a really big high demand for that, what happens to the value? It's a really great value, isn't it? But if you have a really big supply and a low demand, what happens to the value? Yeah, it's really small, isn't it? I feel like I just did a cheerleading move with that. But anyway, so the law of supply and demand here, it helps to explain Tom Brady's salary. Because you knew that's where I was going next, right? All right. By the way, did you watch the Bucs game last Monday night against the Saints? Isn't that awesome? I mean, here we are, the whole game looks like we're walking through a swamp, and all of a sudden the last 13 minutes, not that I was excited about it, we're down 13 points, and Tom Brady and the offense orchestrate 2 down the field touchdown drives, and we win. Do you know there's a really high demand for quarterbacks who can do that? And there's a really low supply of those who can? Hence, you pay the GOAT a lot of money to pay for you because he has great, great value. So Jesus says sparrows fall into the really large supply, very low demand category, which makes sparrows have very little value. This is an important point Jesus is making. And so Jesus says they're so valueless you can get 2 for a penny. And what happens to things in this world of little value? Right? Things of lesser value, we don't really pay real careful attention to taking care of them, do we? Because they don't have much value to us. And so you'll take way greater care of and secure and watch out for your brand new car or a family heirloom than you will for that disposable ink pen you got when you made your last bank deposit, right? Because things of value, we know where they are. And we take care of them because they have value. So Jesus says this to the guys. He knows what's going to happen inside of them. See that sparrow over there, guys? That little one over hopping right there in the ground. And take a good long look at it. I mean, they're as common as sand on the seashore. They're worth $2 a penny. For crying out loud, you can go to the dollar store and for $1 get 200. Those little sparrows that are so worthless to you, I want you to know that there is not one single sparrow anywhere on the face of this planet who can fall without the Heavenly Father being fully dialed in to what's going on every single sparrow on this planet. So these sparrows that are worthless to you, they're like a prized family heirloom to the Father. And then Jesus drives the point home even further, and he adds this for good measure, verse 30. And by the way, and even the very hairs on your head are all numbered. So he's just saying like God's kind of like dialed into you. God's so dialed into you, he knows how many hairs that are on your head. And probably for some of us, it takes a little more counting than others. Did you know there's an average of 140,000 hairs on your head? Pretty cool, huh? All right. Which is, first service thought that was a really cool, fun fact. All right. Now you're with me. All right. This is just another way of Jesus saying to us, God is really dialed into your life. I mean, the one who knows how many hairs are on your head is the one who knows every single detail of what's going on in your life. Nothing is going to slip his notice. Even the hairs on your head. And then Jesus brings home his point in verse 41. So guys, don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. So when things get upside down and life gets really hard and you're having a hard time coordinating a God who you believe is good and a God who is loving, and you're having pain and suffering and difficulty in your life, when this happens, set your fears aside, people. He knows. He cares. And then Jesus sort of teases the guys and he says, you know what, gents? Do you understand you're worth more than just like a few sparrows? And if God cares for the sparrows, he cares for you. He cares for you. How much are you worth to God? Take every single sparrow that has ever flown on this planet, put it on one side of the scale, put you on the other side of the scale, and God's going to take you every single time. Without question, without doubt, without wavering. It's you. And Jesus says, and so if God attends to every mishap at every moment of every sparrow, just try to imagine how he attends to you. So do you remember the little girl that I was holding in the video? You watched before I got up to teach. There she is, Grace. Beautiful little Gracie. Here's Grace's backstory, all right? Grace's mother, Susan, was doing her absolute best to provide for Grace and Grace's brother, Alex. But she had this premonition. She had this idea because of some of the circumstances in her life. She had this fear, what if something happens to me? Who would be there for Gracie and Alex? The answer was no one. There was not a family member. There was not somebody who could be there for her kids. And so Susan heard about a Mzungu woman who had moved to Kenya. And in Kenya, Mzungu is a term that is referred to people with skin as fair as mine. But Susan heard about this Mzungu woman who had sold everything she had, moved to Kenya, and was loving and caring for children, HIV/AIDS orphans. And so she thought, if something happens to me, I have nobody to take care of my kids. Maybe this Mzungu woman would come. So she came to this Mzungu woman and begged and pleaded with her, if something happens to me, will you take my children? I've got to know my children will be taken care of. Well, something did happen to Susan. And so at the age of 2, Gracie and her brother Alex became orphans. And there was no family to take them in. There was no one who was willing to make sure they were okay. And so what happens to such children in Kenya and other places of the world, one, either these kids are left to be exposed to unbelievable, unspeakable kinds of exploitation. Wherever your mind wants to wander, that's what happens to these kids. Or they have a slow death from desertion. Those pretty much are the options for these kids. So these 2 kids are alone in this world. And the God who sees a sparrow fall is the same God who sees Gracie and Alex, their lives fall to the ground. And God steps into this moment like he does most often in all these kind of moments. God nudges and sends off one of his children and says, go do something about this. Because we are his hands and his feet in this world. We are the means by which God does his work in this world. And so often when people find themselves, when these things happen, say, doesn't God care? I think it's the wrong question. The question is, don't we care? Because yes, God cares. And God moves and God works through our hands and our feet and our mouths. The problem, folks, is we don't care. And God takes the blame for it. So God sees these little sparrows, Gracie and Alex, fall. Word gets to this Mzungu woman about the plight of Grace and Alex. And this Mzungu woman rescues these kids. She gives them a safe home. She just embraces them in arms of love that touches not only their bodies but their souls. She makes sure they have food. She makes sure they get an education. She makes sure they get a foundation of faith for their life in the person of Jesus. And Gracie is prospering today. Wouldn't it be cool to meet this Mzungu woman? Well, in fact, it's quite possible because she's here with us. Would you please welcome our own Molly Waits? Hey, Molly.
Hi.
Welcome and welcome home.
Thank you.
And welcome here. It is, isn't it?
Yes.
And thanks for being here with us. All right. Molly, it's been a year since you spoke with us. And so in the last year, there's some folks who are new to Cypress who have never met you and don't know what this is all about. And there's other folks who are aging and need a reminder.
Yeah. I
So,
said there's some people here like, oh no, here she is again. We have to hear this
yeah,
again.
there's some of those probably, huh?
And then there's so many new faces here.
Yeah.
So
It's beautiful.
it's good to see the new faces too.
So anyway, would you quick just tell us, introduce Springs of Hope. What is Springs of Hope Kenya?
Okay, Springs of Hope grew from a vision from Cypress Meadows Community Church. When I first came here, I found out I had a passion for serving people, and people in under-resourced people and people in all kinds of situations. So we started the outreach ministry here, which we worked with the homeless and foster kids, and we went to Haiti and things like that, but then it brought us to Kenya. Yep. So when we went to Kenya, I saw the need there and the children, especially at that time with HIV, AIDS, and all the orphans and all the street kids, and my heart just pulled me to Kenya. Yeah. And then I had to talk to this one and
had to straighten this one out. Yeah. So a children's home was built.
Yes.
There in Kenya. Beautiful children's home, which you know a couple years ago we burnt and has been rebuilt. But then there's also a sewing center. So tell everybody too about the sewing center. What's that about?
So when we first went over there, a friend of mine donated a bunch of small sewing machines, and we wanted to do something to help people living with HIV with these machines. So we started in a back room in the orphanage, and we hired a tailor, and we decided we were going to start making bags. Well, it grew from there. We started training men and women living with HIV. We started getting bigger machines, industrial machines, and now we sew the bags to help them support their families and their children, so that their children aren't the future orphans of Kenya. Because if you don't have a job and things like in money, you can't send your kids to school, you can't feed them, and that's how people succumb to AIDS.
And then with these bags that are out there, they've been
Yeah.
created by these artisans. And then as well, it helps to support what's
The
going
children.
on for the
Helps
children.
Support the children's
Yeah.
home also.
And so the Children's Home, the Sewing Center, Bagamoyo, and then there's Camp Kambiamani. We can't forget that.
Yes, we have a beautiful little camp. It's not far from our children's home. And we started that to also bring income in for the children. So a lot of people that have come to visit us from, I was going to say Springs of Hope, from Cypress that come over with Jackie, they've stayed there. And that's also an endeavor for us to raise funds for the children's home.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's beautiful, by the way. So Children's Home, Sewing Center, Kambiamani. What do you do to stay busy? All right, Molly.
Call bags around.
Call bags, all right. So how many children are currently under your care?
So under our care are 60. So right now we have to work with the government in Kenya, and we also want to reunify children that we can with family members, because our goal is not to have children in children's homes or in orphanages, which we don't even like that. We want them with their family.
Yeah.
So we reunify them with their families. So right now I have about 30 that are reunified, and we support them from within their homes. They still go to boarding school, but we're the ones that support them for their education and everything. If we weren't there, they wouldn't be going to school at all. So some of them were with us at the home, and then they were reunified. And then the other 30 are with us at Springs of Hope, Kenya. Now these are kids that are total orphans. They don't have any other family members that can take them or able, or we would want them to take them.
Or safe, yeah.
Yes, safe. And then we also have kids that are abandoned. And these are some of the hardest cases. There are the abandonment cases, because they have no one. And it also affects their psyche, because, their mother didn't die. They feel like they're not wanted. So we are their family.
Yeah.
That's all they know is us as their family. And then a lot of our cases nowadays are abuse cases. A lot of sexual abuse cases too, and so we never want to put them back into a dangerous situation. So those children stay with us.
Yeah. 60 kids. It's a lot of children to take care of. So we've been doing this for like 15 plus years, and so that means there are some kids that we've had for 15 plus years who you've brought in and you've raised and grown, who've come through this whole system. So tell us a story about one of the kids that came in early on and what they're doing now.
There's so many that I could talk about, but I decided to pick Joseph Kuhuria. He'll be graduating high school he's out of school in a few days, I think next week. He came to us when he was around 7 or 8 years old. He was defiled. His father was an abusive alcoholic, and he's HIV positive, and he witnessed his mother commit suicide. So he came with a whole lot of baggage. He was needed a lot of help, and a lot of years of help, and a lot of us loving him and being there for him. To now, this is 7. Now he's graduating from high school. And he's just this totally different young man. He's very smart. He's going to go into cybersecurity. He's doing really well at school. He's loving, caring. He's just a wonderful young man. But if we weren't there for him, I don't know what would have happened to him, or if his future, what kind of future he would have. Because a lot of these kids don't see themselves having a future.
No, it's absolutely transformative, changes the whole trajectory of these kids' lives with what's going on. I think last year you talked to us about Dennis, who was a street boy when we first met him, and now is studying for the bar exam in Kenya, which is pretty amazing, isn't it? And he's going to devote himself, his desire is to protecting those most vulnerable children who are being exploited in attendance. And we got other kids
We have Anthony.
getting a PhD, I think.
He's working on his PhD. And then there's also Andrew. And Andrew is also going into cybersecurity, and I'm so proud of him because he presented me a business plan for e-commerce for Kenya. And he sent it to my husband for him to work with him so he can do this. So I was like, this boy, these young men that were on the street, I know for sure Dennis and Anthony especially never even thought he would go to primary or ever even finish high school.
No.
And now he's our Springs of Hope lawyer. In fact, Daniel's like, we were doing some changes to some documents. He goes, let me send it to Dennis and have him look it over for us. I'm like, okay.
I know.
Free lawyer, I'll take that.
I know. That's beautiful. So I introduced everybody to Gracie here and told about her story. Would you tell us a story like of another of the kids, maybe one of the more recent kids you brought in?
Yeah, the other child that I picked to talk about was Joy. I have pictures of her. That's Joy, and she came to us over the summer. Some of the people that came with Jackie from the church met her while she was there. We got a call from the children's department that there was a little girl. The age, she looks really small, but she's probably about 4 or 5, that she was in the hospital and that she had been defiled, and that they had nowhere for her to go, and it was a serious situation. So we of course took her in, and the situation was that she lived in a very far off community from where we're at, very rural area, and the mother had run away, and the dad was there with all the kids and fending for them, and he was a security guard. They don't make a lot of money, and they work all the time, like almost 24 hours a day. They work like 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
And he didn't make any money. He wasn't home. The kids are fending for themselves. They had no food, no clothes. So the defilement, I believe, happened from one of the older brothers. And so she would go out into the community and beg for food. And she's little.
Yeah.
And one day she was at a neighbor's, and the neighbor noticed that she actually told the neighbor that had happened to her. And so the neighbor took her to our area, to the hospital, and that's how she came to us in very serious condition. But you can see how the living, those are her siblings. And I look at that picture, and that's a typical story of most of our children, where they come from, what has happened to them. And I just look at the faces of the brothers and sisters in this picture, and there's no hope in their faces, not one bit of hope. But then when you look at the pictures of Joy, when she's with us and she's safe and she feels happy, and that's her. And she was one of those children. I mean, my heart is that I would love to help the other ones too.
Yeah.
But it's difficult because they're in a different community, and we have to go through the government, processes to do that.
Yeah. Amazing transformation happening with her. Way to go, Molly. Way to go. Thank you for being here. All right, we hear what you're doing. How can we help? How can your home church here? How can we help?
Well, with all these children, education is a big thing. We really want them to get their education so they can have a hope of a future. So I encourage everybody here to please give to the year-end offering.
Amen.
This is our big.
Amen. This is it.
This is it. And with the kids that we have graduating from high school, and then the kids going into primary or middle school, that comes all with the extra cost, You have to buy new uniforms and everything, and then the kids, we have to figure out if they're gonna go to trade school or if they're gonna be going to colleges. And then I also have the ones I'm still supporting that are in university, Dennis and Anthony and them, so they can get their degrees and PhDs and all that. So it's a monumentous task.
Yep.
It's at least 30,000 or more. I mean,
Every year.
every year. So this is to come back, and then I come back and I sell the bags to help support them and, the people that make it. And I have 400 bags in customs. Which,
On this side of the pond or
yes,
that
this
side?
side.
This side.
So
Okay.
this is also putting a hindrance on the fundraising. So give to the year-end offering. Go buy all the bags so I don't have to carry, this old body's getting sore, any more bags. Buy bags, buy ornaments, buy them all. So when these new ones come, I have all these other beautiful bags gone. And then you can help support all the people that are making it and our children. You can give online. I have a QR code out there. Just give any way that you can.
Yeah.
But, really feed into the year-end offering, please.
Amen. All right, Molly, I'm going to release you here in a moment. Go out and be out on the patio. You can meet Molly out there as you do some Christmas shopping. But any final words you want to say to the Cypress tribe?
This is what last time I cried.
It's okay. I brought napkins or Kleenexes
I
this
told
time.
Eric, watch out. If you do this with me, I cry all the time. I want to thank everybody from the church. You. This is no small undertaking, and I'm not patting myself on the back because it's not me, it's you all. And through your giving and donations, that these kids have any hope of a future. So I want to thank you so much for, some of you have been with me from the beginning. Some of you are new. We welcome you to join in. But thank you very much. And thank you for saving the lives, because you are the parents of these children. You don't know them. Some of you will know them if you come visit with Jackie this summer. But we couldn't do it without you and everybody at Cypress.
And we thank you too, Molly. Thank you. All right, I'm going to give Molly a chance to get out there and to mop up. All right. Two things. I don't know all the circumstances that are going on in your life right now, but I know somebody who does know. And you just have to know that. God knows what's going on for you, and He cares. The one who knows 1.6 billion sparrows by name knows where they are right now in this moment and knows what's going on in their little world. He knows your name. And He knows the circumstances in your life, and He cares. And when 2 sparrows go for a penny, as Jesus said, are you not worth many sparrows? Set fear aside, people. Set fear aside. Second, will you be the hands and feet of Jesus so others know that God cares? This is how God works in this world. We are His hands and we are His feet. And so when we don't step into what's going on in the lives of others of this world, they're going to find themselves wondering, does God know and does God care? It's the wrong question. The question is, do we care? And do we care enough to be His hands and His feet, to step into what's going on in this world? And so, as you heard Molly say, and you saw in the video, our 2022 year-end offering is going for children. Our goal is to raise $65,000 And we're asking you, give above and beyond your tithes and your offerings. Whatever it is you normally give, above and beyond. And to answer the question I was asked on the patio after first service, no, buying bags does not count for tithing. But it's going so that Molly's kids, the kids at Springs of Hope, all right, they get in the next grade of school. And it's going so that our children, the children of Cypress, we're going to upgrade what's happening for our children and for our students. So much energy, so much effort and intentionality is going towards our children and our students this next year in the church. And it's going to fund that, the children. Last week I told you how to determine what to give. Let me give you the cliff notes on it, right? So you get, I don't know, if you give electronically on your phone or your computer, or if you write checks or whatever it is that you do, sit down with it, pray, and the first number that's going to come to your mind is the easy peasy number. You can just do it without thinking and you won't miss it. That is not the number you give, all right? That's like your starting point, like easy peasy. You wait and you keep raising that number and raising that number until you reach level 2. Level 2 is like there's a pause. And there's like, oh my. And you realize, okay. You shrug your shoulders. Okay. You don't give that. You keep raising that number and raising that number until something in you goes, whoa, really? This is going to cost, I may have to say no to something else to say yes to these children. And you find yourself taking this cleansing breath and, all right, God, here we go. And you hit send. Or you sign the check. That number is going to be different for all of us. But if we all go to that place and push ourselves to the place where, whoa, cleansing breath. All right, God, here we go. We'll get there. We'll get there. All right. Just put in the memo line, why you? I'm going to turn you loose. And I'm not going to close in prayer with my mouth today, okay? You're going to close in prayer. I'm going to ask you to pray with your hands and your heart. Figure out what your gift to the year-end offering is. And then pray with your hands. Send. Pray with your hand. Sign your name. And when we all pray that way, these kids will be in school, and your own kids, Cypress kids, are going to have a phenomenal year next year in growing in what it means to know Jesus. So, whenever you're finished praying, you can go out and do some Christmas shopping. May the Lord bless and keep you, and see you next Sunday.